What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, the second one of this evening, because we have had some major news from the Premier League. Double Game Week 28 and Double Game Week 29 is happening. 3 extra fixtures, 6 teams, and each of those weeks are doubling. This is pretty big. Now, the video earlier was like an initial reaction, thought process, and stuff like that about what had been announced. But obviously, the deadline's tomorrow. I took a few hours to kind of digest a bit more of the information, and now we're going to talk about it some more, including my plans, which probably, at the time of recording, are kind of 80-20 in favour of wildcarding this week. It's such a big video, such a big piece of news. I've even put a shirt on for the occasion as well. So if you do enjoy it, give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Let's talk about some first thoughts, okay? So first of all, nothing has changed for Game Week 26. So although this is big, and for a lot of people, it is going to change their chip strategy and stuff like that. Remember that every team is different, all that usual jazz that everyone says, okay? If you've got like a perfect team for this week and you don't have to use any transfers or you don't have to take a hit or anything like that, just go with it. Triple Captain Salah, happy days. You don't need to be stressing. So nothing's changed for this. If you are considering a wildcard and you don't want to do it this week, you can leave your options open by potentially wildcarding in Game Week 28 instead. Now, a few reasons why that could be good. You get over the Game Week 26 and 27 matches first of all, and then any players you've brought in for Game Week 27, for example, Burnley players for the double game week, you could then get rid of on your 28 wildcard, prepare for the double in 28, the double in 29, and obviously try and get through Game Week 30 as well. So if you want a stress-free life, just make the transfers you were going to make anyway. Prioritise as many Liverpool and Arsenal players as you can this week. They still have the best double in 26. They also both have double game weeks later on as well in Game Week 29 when they actually play each other as well. They're still the priority. I would say the other teams that are now better to look at this week are Wolves, because they've now got another additional double game week down the line, and they play in Game Week 30 and they play in Game Week 27, and Leeds are the same. Now, obviously, when it comes to Leeds, there's only really Rafinha on our minds anyway, but he is someone to look at. Right? He now becomes a much better option this week for the long term. And if you don't decide to wildcard, then you've still got some good players in. So Game Week 28 wildcard is definitely an option. But yeah, Arsenal and Liverpool are still the best for Game Week 26. According to Ben Krellin, obviously, he's always up to date with the fixture stuff. So there's 10.5. I think he said 0.5 because Burnley are doubling in 27, but Leicester have just got a single game week, right? So I think that's why he said 10.5. 10.5 double game week fixtures for 26 to 29. And obviously that's a very short span of time, right? 4 game weeks. There's 13 double game weeks for 31 to 37. He thinks up to half of them could be in game week 36. So there's still, out of all the games that have been postponed, there's still 7 games to rearrange. 3 of them are for Leicester, right, which is interesting. It means we're definitely going to want Leicester players after Game Week 30. We don't need to worry about them necessarily right now. But if half of them are in Game Week 36, that's the ones from the FA Cup blanks, which will happen in Game Week 30. So we're going to have a few smaller double game weeks, but it might mean the wildcard is not so necessary after Game Week 30, because especially, I'm going to come on to it in a minute, but if you've got 2 free hits, you could use one in Game Week 36. Okay, instead of having to use it earlier. Yes, you won't be able to bench boost that week, but we're going to come on to that in a minute. Just a few things I thought I would look into. If we're all trying to load... So Arsenal, Wolves and Leeds are really good, and Liverpool to a certain extent, but Arsenal, Wolves and Leeds are good because they all double in 26 and they all play in Game Week 30 and they have another double game week. Obviously with Arsenal it's slightly different because in Game Week 27 they do blank, but these are the fixtures for Game Week 31 to 34. So let's say you're loading up on these players. How much is it going to hurt if you have to hold them for a few weeks afterwards? It doesn't mean you have to hold all of them, but if you haven't got a wild card, let's say you either use it this week or you use it in Game Week 28, you're going to have to stick with some of these players. So having Rafinha for Southampton, Watford, Chelsea, Palace is not that bad. And obviously, like I said, you do have free transfers. Wolves have got Villa, Newcastle. That's pretty decent. Man City's tough, but Burnley away is all right. I think Arsenal, especially from a defensive point of view, Palace, Brighton, Southampton are not that bad either. So you wouldn't be too worried about having to carry some of those players on, maybe not all 3. And then Villa are slightly different. They don't have a double this week, but they do have one. I can't even remember right now if it's 28 or 29, but they have another double. and then they do play in game week 30 as well. And then they go into Wolves, Spurs, Liverpool, Leicester. So it's a little bit more tricky. So I don't know how long we're going to want to hold on to Villa players afterwards. But obviously one player that you could look to bring in is Ramsey. And when he's got those bad fixtures, he's very cheap. You could just bench him. The other thing to take into account is these are the fixture runs, like top of the fixture tickers at the moment for game week 31 to 34. So Spurs I don't think is too bad, because a lot of people will have Son or Kane because they've now got 2 double game weeks, right? And even though they don't play in game week 30, you might be able to just bench one of them, or possibly go into game week 30 with just 10 players or something like that. And then they come back into Newcastle, Villa, Brighton or Brentford. So the one thing to kind of think about is you don't want to give it too much thought, right? Because these game weeks are far away. But it's more just pointing out that if you're loaded up on these teams, it might not be the end of the world if you can't get straight out of it after the after the blank in game week 30. The only thing is, a lot of the players you'd have from these teams are cheap. Okay, most of your money will still be probably tied up in the likes of Salah, Trent and players like that. So going from these kind of players to kind of Spurs players, or maybe even Man United attackers for Leicester, Everton, Norwich, could be tricky. And let's not forget Chelsea either. They've got a really good fixture on, so we might need a way to get in a defender, possibly Mount and stuff like that. So that's just one thing to think about. I don't think it's a huge issue trying to get players from these teams right now, because they're not massively, negative to have in your team after 31. All right, let's talk about Wildcard Game Week 26, the pros, the cons, how it's going to work, what the team would look like, why I think it's quite a good thing to do. And then we'll do some of the questions that came in on the Game Week preview that are still relevant even now after these announcements, right? Obvious caveats, first of all. Not everybody's team is the same, right? I keep seeing loads of people saying, why do you need to take all these hits? Why do you need to wildcard? I'm rolling a transfer. I'm only taking a -4. Everyone's team is different, okay? So you might not need it. You might have a perfect team. You might have different chips, different thoughts, stuff like that. That's absolutely fine. I'm just talking about why I think it now might be a good idea, and why I'm heavily considering doing it. So some of the pros. First of all, it removes the need for hits in Game Week 26. I'm going to be honest, I've talked about hits all week, and I know some people think you just talk about it and not going to do it. I was probably up to like a -16 or a -20. I just think my team needed that many changes. I was happy to get rid of Fernandes. I wanted rid of Ronaldo to fund Salah. I wanted rid of Reguilon, Trossard. That's like already 5 players before I even consider other positions. So it gets rid of the need for all those hits. You can also then cover the double game week in 26, the double game week in 28, the double game week in 29, and have a pretty good team for game week 30, all with one wildcard. That's a big value advantage. Now, obviously, there could be injuries, right? And it could put a spanner in the works as you go along. I'm sure it's not going to be perfect right from now until game week 30. But you do have transfers as well. What I would say is, if you're going to wildcard this week, I really think you have to free hit in game week 27. The reason for that is, if you are putting a wildcard together without 3 Liverpool and without 3 Arsenal, then it is a bad wildcard. I don't think there's any debate around that. They've got the best double this week. They've got a really good double. They've got another double in 29 as well. I feel like you have to have 6 players from those 2 teams to make the wildcard worth it this week. So you have to use, in my opinion, a free hit in game week 27 to cover those. You don't want 6 players not playing as you go into game week 27. Now, if you've got 2 free hits, it's much easier to do that, and you wouldn't need to hopefully use your free hit in game week 30, so you could then save it for free hit 36. Now, that is probably going to be a big double game week, as I discussed earlier, and a lot of people were looking to bench boost that week. That is still on the card. You could still potentially bench boost, but obviously there's a big time gap between game week 26 wildcard and bench boosting in 36, so you'd probably be better off bench boosting earlier just to kind of have it done. Now, free hitting 36 when everyone else is bench boosting is not a massive disadvantage in my opinion, because if people are wildcarding around game week 35, then they've got very few weeks to make use of the bench boost. What most people were doing, and what my original plan was to wildcard in 31 or 32, but then potentially you're having to use transfers to make the bench boost better. Maybe not a huge amount, but maybe 1 or 2. Whereas with the free hit, you get to potentially the next big double game week. There is one in 28 and 29, but they're not probably going to be as big as the one in game week 36. And you just get to have your pick of whatever's happening right there and then. You can take into account injuries, suspensions, any reason why players aren't playing. And who knows, it might be better. One thing to say is obviously it's very hard to know exactly how game week 31 to 38 is going to go. but it could work out well. So if you've got 2 free hits, it's kind of ideal. If you've only got 1, it's a little bit trickier. But again, if you're covering 28, 29 and 30 with 1 wildcard, then what do you really need the other 3 hit for? Because I think a lot of the fixtures that have been put into 28 and 29 were originally thought to be going into after game week 31. So there's a lot less now double game week fixtures afterwards than there originally was going to be. And when 3 are Leicester anyway, right, everyone's going to have Maddison either way. So I don't know, it just feels pretty good to be able to cover so much time game week wise and so many doubles in one go. You're going to see how many double game week players you get in each week in just a second. The cons are you can't triple captain Salah. I'm going to come on to that in a sec. You've got no get out of jail card after game week 31. So if all these players are suddenly really bad and there's a lot of double game weeks suddenly put in from game week 31 to 33 and we don't have players for them, it could be a lot of hits. But the way I look at it is, what is better about taking the hits now and wildcarding later? I feel like wildcarding when you've got the information in front of you and then maybe having to take hits, maybe not, is possibly a better way of doing it. But obviously you don't have the wildcard. I think to make it work, you really got to remove Bowen and Cancelo from your team. You can free hit Cancelo back in 27. He's probably not going to play in game week 30 either. So it's only 28 and 29 that you're going without him. And I think it's like Man United and Crystal Palace. So look, he's brilliant, but I don't think you can make it work by keeping him. If you do, you are weakening the gains you should be able to get from wildcarding this week. Now, obviously, after game week 30, you could bring him back in. But for most of us, we're going to lose a lot of money on him, like 0.6 million if you were on him early. So that is a bit of a consideration, but I don't think it should stop you. I think Bowen is less of a worry, and I know it's crazy saying that given how good his form has been. But West Ham don't have kind of any doubles to rearrange or anything like that right now. They might have one after they blank in game week 30 if they win their FA Cup game. But then I assume that would just go into game week 36. And you could just free hit then anyway. So if you look at kind of West Ham's upcoming fixtures, like it's Liverpool away in 28 anyway. It's not ideal. They're probably going to blank in game week 30. Game week 29 is pretty good. Villa at home. And obviously you missed the Newcastle game this week, but you get a double game week player instead. And obviously, if you're free hitting in 27, you could choose to get him back in anyway. The fixtures after 30 are really good. And again, you could look to bring him back in. For me, looking at these 2 players, I would lose 0.6 on Cancelo as long as he doesn't... If he drops in price, obviously, I've lost less money. And with Bowen, it's 0.3 million. So the gap is not quite as big with him. I think it's definitely worth it to drop them on wildcard. I think you have to. I think if you're keeping them on wildcard, you're not really playing it right, in my opinion. Chelsea have a fixture swing from 28 onwards. It goes right up until like game week 33, 34 or something like that. It's going to be hard to get them. But again, I don't think it really matters because you've got a bunch of double game week players instead. If they get a double put into 28, maybe we'll reassess. Because all the people that kind of do the fixture planning, like Ben, James on Planet FPL, Lego Mane on Twitter and stuff like that, they're a bit conflicted about whether Arsenal and Chelsea will still go into game week 28. Some of them think it's a possibility, some don't. So Arsenal could have like 3 double game weeks in 4 weeks. But let's not worry about that. They're going to blank in game week 30 anyway, Chelsea. So afterwards, you could maybe look to bring him in. So already, there are a few players. I'm already saying you could bring Cancelo back. You could get Bowen back. You could get Chelsea players in. But obviously, you've got no wild card. So you have to be kind of prepared to take that risk if you want to put it like that. Let's talk about Salah triple captain. It is huge. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, if you're not wildcarding this week, you're not bench boosting, you absolutely have to put the triple captain on Salah. There is no doubt in my mind that's the best play. Now, the way I'm kind of... I don't know. It's not that they're blinded by Salah, but it's because people are so focused on doing it, they're not prepared to look at the alternatives. So let me just try and explain why it might not be as bad as it's going to look, possibly, okay? So I looked on FPLreview.com. In game week 26, Salah is projected to get 18.07 points. That's massively high, by the way. Right? I know you think Salah can easily get 25-30. I get it, but for a projection model, 18.07 is really high. Now, Salah has another double in 29. It is a much more difficult one. Brighton away and Arsenal away is not ideal, but obviously Salah and Liverpool are both brilliant. And they've got him down as 12.25 projected points for that one. So realistically, it's only, from those projections, it's about a 6-point loss. And obviously you can captain Salah in game week 26 anyway, so you're only losing out on whatever his score is, okay? So if he gets 15 points, you get 30, everyone that triple captains get 45, you've missed out on 15 points from your triple captain. In this projection, it's only a 6-point gap. So if these projections were true, let's say Salah gets 18 this week and he gets 12 in 29, it's only a 6-point loss. So that 6-point loss on triple captain against all those benefits I've just spoken about for wildcard, I don't think that's a good trade-off for not wildcarding for that reason alone. You might have other reasons, like your team's really good, but that reason's not enough. Let's say that Norwich versus Leeds is super amazing. It's really good fixtures for Salah, which it is, and he gets 25 points. And against Brighton and Arsenal, he only gets 8 points, right? That's a 17-point gap. Maybe you think that's a bit more realistic. I'm still not sure that's quite enough to not wildcard this week. Only if Salah is your only argument against it. I just don't think that's enough reason not to do it. I think you will gain more from wildcarding than you will from losing the triple captain Salah. It could be worse than 17 points. It could be better. You'll have to ultimately come up with that yourself. But that's how I would kind of think about the Salah triple captaincy. If there's lots of other reasons, like your team is great, you don't need many hits and stuff like that, brilliant. Don't wildcard. But don't use Salah as the only excuse, in my opinion anyway. Let's see what the team looks like. Okay, now this is how the team looks that I've come up with straight away. Now, to be honest, I didn't take too much time putting this together. I think when you are using a wildcard to get through a set amount of game weeks and you already know where the doubles and blanks are, it shouldn't take that long to kind of figure out exactly which teams and stuff you want to cover. It's just about getting the specific players. Right? Do you go Robertson? Do you go Van Dijk? Do you go Saiss or Semedo, Tierney or Gabriel? Stuff like that. The other thing I haven't done yet, because to be honest, I just haven't had enough time with trying to get these videos out, is working out my transfers in between. Because obviously we are going to have a few transfers if we wildcard in Game Week 26. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to do it at this point. So this is the Game Week 26 team. Again, you could have Ramsdale instead of Sarr, etc. You could take one, get rid of one of the Arsenal attackers if you wanted to. This is just how I've set it up right now. Now you have 11 double game week players for this week. Okay, you don't have Bowen, but you have Rafinha with a double. That seems okay. You don't have Cancelo. That's not great because we know how good he is. Like Cancelo could get double digits against Spurs, right? He's that good. But again, you've got a double game week player to kind of play off that instead. So that's kind of what I would look at. 3 Arsenal, 3 Liverpool, and even if Liverpool defence gets a little bit rotated in Game Week 26, I think you just want them going forward anyway, so you have to go for 3. I think it's crazy not to. And then on the bench, you got Foster. Obviously, Watford have got a couple of double game weeks this week, and then they got another one coming up as well. Broja for Southampton's double. And if West Ham beat Southampton in the FA Cup, Broja will play in Game Week 30 as well, and he's got good fixtures, so I like him as a pick. And then Luca Dean and Ramsey to cover off some of the Villa doubles later on. So that's the bench. Obviously, you're just captain Salah. You won't triple captain him, but you're just captain him. So 11 double game week players there. I'm not going to go through transfers. I haven't even worked it out myself yet. Game week 27, you would free hit. I really do think you have to free hit if you're wildcarding. Game week 28 then. So you've got, let me just put all the double game weekers in. I'll try and work out game week 28 would probably be your bench boost week, potentially. Not guaranteed, but I think this is probably when I would do it. So I would probably, a realistic bench boost would be to play my double game week players. So you've got Jimenez, Broja, Ramsey, Rafinha, Luca Dean, Saiss and Sarr. So you've got 7 double game week players for game week 28 without using a free transfer this week as well, by the way. You'd probably play Son and all your Liverpool players, maybe anyway, we don't need to get into that, ahead of your Arsenal players. So you've got 3 Arsenal players against Watford away on the bench. The most ideal situation would be for Arsenal and Chelsea's double to get put in 28 at late notice, and then you've suddenly got a bench boost with kind of, I don't know, whatever, Son and a couple of Liverpool players, which seems fine. And obviously you've got Foster with a double game week as well. So 7 double game weekers, 8 if you include the bench boost as well, and all the single game week players. It's literally Arsenal against Watford, Liverpool against West Ham, and Son versus Everton, right? So that looks pretty good. And again, no free transfer used. Game week 29, obviously you have to put all your Liverpool players back in, and your Arsenal players, because they've got a double game week. Tierney would go in ahead of Saiss. So then you've got 1, 2 Liverpool, 3 with Tierney, 4 Saka, 5 with Salah, 6 with Son, and 8 with Lacazette. So you've got 11 double game week players in 26. You've got 7 or 8 if you bench boost in 28. And in game week 29, you've got another 7 players, right? That sounds pretty good to me. That sounds like a huge amount of value in Wildcard in this week. And then in game week 30, again, we're looking quite far ahead here, but in game week 30, guaranteed players to be playing that week, or at least guaranteed teams. Hopefully players don't get injured. You've got Sarr, Tierney, Saka, Rafinha, Jimenez, Lacazette, Luka Dean and Ramsey. So you've got, and Sai, sorry. So you've got 9 players playing in game week 30 guaranteed. And then you've got Broja if West Ham beat Southampton in the FA Cup. So that's 10. So I've just gone through. So I can't even remember now. I think it was 11 double game weeks in 26, 8 in 28, 7 in 29, 9 or 10 players in game week 30. And that's before I've even used any transfers. Obviously, I know some of the arguments would be, what if it doesn't play out like that? That all sounds perfect. Things could happen, of course, but things could happen if I don't wildcard as well, right? Obviously, then you've got to get from this team onwards for the rest of the season. But in game week 31, 3 of your players are Liverpool playing Watford, 3 of them are Arsenal playing Crystal Palace. Wolves have got Villa. Son's got Newcastle, Rafinha's got Southampton. I mean, game week 31 is okay, and we've still not used any transfers. And then from game week 32 onwards, it maybe gets a little bit trickier, but it's not the end of the world. I got to be honest, when I first saw this happen, and when I did my first video, I thought it was an opportunity game week 26 wildcard. I've got to be honest, I've pretty much sold myself on it now. Just want to cover one thing that I haven't mentioned at all, obviously, which did originally get done in the game week preview, but that video got cancelled, is Jota is out for Norwich game in game week 26. I would say there's a very big chance that he doesn't start against Leeds either. For me, he is an absolute definite sell, because if he's not going to be good for game week 26, he blanks in 27, he probably blanks in 30 as well. You're only really worried about 28 and 29, and obviously even then he's the least nailed now than he probably has been for weeks, right? Because Firmino's back, Diaz is in there as well and playing well, so he's not even guaranteed to start in those games. So I think you have to sell him. In terms of best options, you have to go for Arsenal attackers, probably like Saka. Obviously, if you've got the money to go straight to Salah and it means you can keep someone else instead, then great. But Saka's probably good. Rafinha looks really good as well now. They are probably the 2 that I would focus on getting rid of him for. In terms of who's the best third Liverpool player, I'm not really looking at any of the attackers. I think Firmino on a free hit in 26 looks okay, but I wouldn't want to hold him long term because he's not guaranteed minutes either. If Jota's back by game week 28, then Firmino is then suddenly a rotation risk. And there's nothing to say they won't play like a Origi or someone like that in the easier game like Norwich at the weekend. Obviously, we might get early team news, who knows. So I don't really like any of the attackers. I think it has to be, bearing in mind everyone's got Salah and Trent, I think it has to be Robertson or Van Dijk. For the long term, I do think Robertson is the better option. There probably is, in my mind, some doubts around whether Robertson will definitely start both of these games, because I think Tsimikas could start one, and Van Dijk's probably got more chance of playing both, although Konate and Matip could play as a partnership, right? They're good enough to do that. So I think if you're wildcarding, I'm probably going to go for Robertson because he is who I would want longer term. But maybe if I was only trying to get through game week 26 and I was going to wildcard in 28 or something like that, then maybe I'd look at Van Dijk instead. But I think Robertson is the one I would want long term. So Jota for me has to go. I'm going to leave the video there because, quite frankly, there's not enough time to cover anything else. I can't go through everyone's different kind of chip strategies and stuff like that. But I'll be attempting to answer some more questions on the deadline stream tomorrow. I'll try and start as early as possible. Thank you for bearing with me. What chaos. Let's get the wildcard going. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow.